The combat exams canceled because the human maintenance worker just turned a desk into something our weapons vault can't classify. Kael'thas stared at the impossible object in Emma Johnson's hand, his secondary heart stuttering in a rhythm that hadn't occurred since the siege of Vardox. 30 years as senior combat instructor at the Galactic Military Academy, 30 years training the finest warriors across 47 species, and he'd never seen anything that made his combat analysis implants simply stop working. Command, this is Instructor Kael'thas, Authorization Crimson 7. He kept his voice steady, professional, even as his threat assessment software crashed for the third time. I need immediate weapons classification on an unknown object. No, I can't describe it. Because it shouldn't exist, Admiral. Emma looked up from the geometric metal shape she was casually holding in one hand, her other hand wrapped around a coffee mug that read, "I turn wrenches into magic." She had that confused expression humans got when they didn't understand why everyone was staring. "Is this about the desk?" she asked, glancing at the empty space where Instructor Vox's presentation desk had stood 15 minutes ago. "I can put it back if—" "Don't move," Kael'thas said, forcing calm into his words. Behind him, 23 of the Academy's most advanced combat cadets stood frozen, their ceremonial training weapons hanging useless in their grips. Weapons that had been perfectly balanced, perfectly weighted, perfectly functional until exactly 14 minutes ago. Now they couldn't lift them. Kael'thas's tactical display showed impossible readings, gravitational fluctuations cascading through the entire training hall, centered on the object in the human's hand. The thing that had been a standard-issue military presentation desk, solid titanium composite, 400 pounds, designed to withstand orbital bombardment, now compressed into a shape roughly 6 inches across, that his pattern recognition software insisted was folding through dimensions his species couldn't perceive. According to YouTube analytics, 98% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, I just needed something to pry open the maintenance panel, Emma continued, apparently oblivious to the facility-wide lockdown initiating around her. The one in Section 7, it's been stuck for like a week, and I thought if I had better leverage. The Academy's ancient weapons detection grid, a system that had operated flawlessly for 10,000 years, that could identify a concealed blade from 3 sectors away, that had cataloged every known weapon configuration in galactic history, went completely offline. Every single node. Red emergency lighting flooded the training hall. All personnel, Level 1 security alert. Headmaster Azila's voice cut through the facility-wide comm system, carrying the kind of authority that had commanded fleets during the border wars. Lock down all sectors. Nobody moves until we understand what we're dealing with. Kael'thas heard the underlying tension in her voice. Azila didn't panic. She'd stared down Krellian death squads without flinching. But right now, addressing the entire Academy, he could hear the edge of something he'd never heard from her before. Uncertainty. Instructor Kael'thas, status report. Now. He triggered his private command channel. Headmaster, the human civilian, Emma Johnson, maintenance staff, hired 2 weeks ago, has somehow converted a presentation desk into an object our systems cannot classify. Combat analysis reads it as simultaneously weightless and possessing enough gravitational mass to affect cadet weapons 3 meters away. She's holding it one-handed while drinking coffee. Silence on the channel. Then, the desk weighs 400 pounds. Yes, Headmaster. She folded it. I watched her do it. Took approximately 30 seconds. She used her hands. Kael'thas pulled up the security footage, rewound it, watched again with growing disbelief. Emma, humming something while pulling and twisting solid titanium like it was origami paper, the metal flowing under her fingers like water finding new channels. No tools, no equipment, just pressure, in patterns I can't identify. Another pause. Instructor, in 10,000 years of Academy operation across 47 species, has anyone ever weaponized furniture before? No, Headmaster, because it violates fundamental combat theory. You can't compress solid military-grade materials without industrial equipment generating minimum 50,000 psi. And even if you could, the resulting object should be inert, not radiating active gravitational fields. And yet, Kyle Toss agreed, watching Emma take another sip of coffee, still looking puzzled about why armed security was taking positions around the training hall. Headmaster, I think we need to reconsider our classification of unarmed civilian. Emma raised her hand like a student asking permission to speak. Is this a bad time? Because I really should get back to that panel. The air circulation's acting weird, and I think something's blocking the... Miss Johnson, Kyle Thoss interrupted gently, please don't move. And whatever you do, don't try to fix anything else. She blinked at him. But that's literally my job. That's when Kyle Toss realized the true scope of the problem. They'd hired a human for maintenance. Vex Thul arrived in full tactical gear, carrying enough specialized scanning equipment to analyze a supernova. The Academy's chief weapons specialist had been pulled from a classified briefing 3 systems away, and he looked appropriately furious about it until he saw what Emma was holding. Then he just looked pale. By the Founders, he whispered, his scanner array deploying automatically. That's... Instructor Kyle Toss, please confirm. This human converted a presentation desk into that using only her hands? Confirmed, Kyle Toss said grimly. 30 seconds. No tools. Vex Thul's primary scanner made a sound like grinding gears. That's not possible. The molecular compression required would need... He checked his readouts. Rechecked them, then checked them a 3rd time. Minimum 50,000 pounds per square inch of pressure applied uniformly across the entire surface. We'd need an industrial press the size of this facility. Emma perked up. Oh, is that what the number is? I always wondered about the actual PSI. It feels like more when you're working with titanium versus steel, but I figured that was just the density difference. You can feel PSI? Vex Thul's scanner clattered to the floor. Well, yeah. Emma looked at Kyle Thoss like he might explain why everyone was acting so weird. Can't you? It's like when you push on something, you can tell where it wants to go. The stress lines show you the path. Stress lines, Vex Thul repeated flatly, are not visible. Sure they are. Emma held up the folded desk, the 6-inch cube of compressed titanium that every scanner in the room insisted was somehow both incredibly dense and impossibly light. See? The material tells you where the weak points are, where it's holding tension, where it'll fold cleanly if you just... Stop, Kyle Thoss said quickly. Please don't demonstrate on anything else. Oh, come on, it's not that complicated. Emma set down her coffee mug and walked over to one of the training chairs. Standard Academy issue, reinforced polymer, rated for species up to 800 pounds. Watch, I'll show you. Miss Johnson, that's really not... Her hands moved across the chair's surface, fingers pressing and pulling in patterns that made Kyle Thoss's combat predictive software throw error messages. The chair flowed. Solid polymer compressed, folded, twisted into angles that shouldn't exist in 3-dimensional space. 30 seconds later, Emma held another impossible cube, this one smaller than the first. She tossed it underhand to Vex Thul. He caught it reflexively and immediately collapsed under its weight, 4 security officers rushing to help him up. Sorry, Emma called out. Should have warned you. The polymer holds differently than metal, probably weighs like 600 pounds now. Ish. 643 pounds, Vex Thul gasped from the floor, his exoskeleton servos whining as they tried to compensate. In an object the size of my fist, this compression density only exists in stellar cores. How are you holding it? Emma picked the cube back up one-handed while retrieving her coffee with the other. I'm just holding it? I mean, I made it so I know where the balance points are. Kyle Toss felt something fundamental crack in his understanding of combat theory. For 10,000 years, the Academy had operated on a simple principle. Weapons were tools. distinct from their users, requiring specific training to wield effectively. You couldn't just make weapons from random objects. That required manufacturing facilities, chemical processes, industrial equipment. Emma had done it with her bare hands while humming a tune he didn't recognize. Specialist Vex Thule, Headmaster Azila's voice cut through the comms, now actively monitoring the situation from command. Your analysis? Vex Thule struggled to his feet, his scanner array working frantically. Headmaster, the human has achieved material compression that violates every principle of metallurgy I know. The molecular bonds in these objects are restructured in patterns that shouldn't be thermodynamically stable. She's essentially created matter in a state that exists nowhere else in the known universe, and she did it by pushing on things. I prefer working along the stress lines, Emma corrected helpfully. Pushing sounds so crude. Kael'thas made a command decision. Miss Johnson, I need you to hand me the desk. Sure. She passed him the titanium cube cheerfully. He took it with both hands, braced his stance, engaged his exoskeleton's hydraulic assists, and couldn't lift it even an inch off her palm. The thing might as well have been bolted to the planet's core. Emma pulled it back effortlessly. Oh, right. I forget sometimes. Here, let me... She adjusted her grip slightly, and suddenly Kael'thas could feel the weight distribution shift. Still impossibly heavy, but somehow she was making it more possible just by how she held it. How, he said carefully, are you doing that? Doing what? Around the training hall, Kael'thas heard the quiet sound of 24 advanced combat cadets looking at their ceremonial weapons, weapons they'd trained with for years, weapons passed down through generations of warriors, and realizing they were holding toys compared to what the unarmed human maintenance worker had just casually created from office furniture. Headmaster, Kael'thas said quietly into his command channel, I believe we need to immediately review our protocols for human personnel classification. Already underway, Azila replied, her voice tight. And instructor? Ask her what else she's been fixing. Kael'thas felt his blood chill. Miss Johnson, you said you've been working here for 2 weeks. What exactly have you been repairing? Emma brightened. Oh, tons of stuff. Your maintenance equipment here is ancient, no offense, so I've been upgrading things. The plasma cutter in Section 3 works way better now, and I rebalanced all the graviton wrenches in the storage bay, and there was this weird drill thing that kept jamming, so I adjusted the torquey housing and... How many items total? Vex Thule interrupted, his scanner now pointed at Emma herself. Emma counted on her fingers. Maybe 40, 50. I've been keeping busy. 50 items. 50 impossible tool modifications scattered throughout the galaxy's premier military training facility, each one a potential weapon nobody had seen coming. Within an hour, Headmaster Azila had convened an emergency crisis council in the Academy's most secure briefing room. 15 of the galaxy's top military leaders materialized as holograms around the conference table, their expressions ranging from skeptical to alarmed as they watched the security footage of Emma folding furniture. Azila stood at the head of the table, her command presence filling the room despite the circumstances. Gentlemen, you've all reviewed the preliminary reports. I need tactical assessments, and I need them now. Admiral Dirax of the 7th Fleet spoke first. Headmaster, with respect, this has to be a fabrication. No biological entity can compress military-grade materials without... She's standing outside, Azila interrupted. Would you like her to demonstrate? The silence was deafening. Bring her in. Emma entered the briefing room still holding her coffee, looking thoroughly bewildered by the assembly of high-ranking officers. Hi, everyone. So, am I in trouble? Because if this is about the gravity thing in Section 7, I was going to fix that before... Miss Johnson, Azila said calmly, these officers need to understand what you can do. We have combat-certified materials in this room. Would you mind demonstrating your technique? Oh, sure. Emma set down her coffee and picked up the armor plate Vex Thule had placed on the table, a piece of certified military-grade hull armor designed to withstand direct weapons fire. What do you want me to do with it? Whatever you did to the furniture, Azila said. Emma shrugged and began working the armor plate with her fingers. The assembled military leadership watched in stunned silence as she folded the indestructible material like paper, creasing it with casual precision, bending it into increasingly complex shapes. 3 minutes later, she set down a perfect origami crane on the conference table, made of armor plating that could survive orbital bombardment. Pretty, right? Emma smiled. My niece taught me that fold. There's this really tricky part in the wings where you have to... Test it, Admiral Dirax commanded hoarsely. Vexthul picked up the crane carefully, placed it in a containment field, and activated a plasma torch, the kind used to cut through ship hulls. The flame washed over the delicate paper-thin wings without leaving a mark. Still indestructible, he reported, his voice hollow. The material properties haven't degraded. She's just reshaped it. Permanently. How is that possible? Demanded General Korvax, leaning forward in his holographic projection. You just work with where the molecules want to go, Emma explained, picking up a cafeteria tray someone had brought as another test sample. See, every material has these natural flow patterns, stress points where it's holding tension. You just encourage it along those paths and... Her hands moved across the tray's surface. The metal sang, a high-pitched tone that made every officer in the room reach for weapons they weren't carrying. In 15 seconds, Emma held a blade, perfectly balanced, with an edge that caught the light like a razor. She set it on, the table next to the crane. Vexthul, Azila prompted. The weapons specialist ran his scanners over the blade, then pulled out a testing diamond. He drew the blade across it. The diamond split cleanly in half. Sharper than our finest manufactured weapons, Vexthul reported, staring at the blade like it might attack him. Molecular edge is... Headmaster, this is sharper than what's physically possible with our technology. The edge is approximately 3 molecules wide. I did say it was a good one, Emma offered. The tray had really nice grain structure. You could probably make it sharper if you started with better source material, like actual tool steel instead of... Molecules don't want to go anywhere, interrupted Dr. Zara, the Academy's chief materials scientist, her voice rising with frustration. They don't have preferences. They don't have natural flow patterns. They follow electromagnetic forces and quantum mechanical principles which are governed by immutable laws of physics. Emma blinked. I mean, sure? But you can still feel where they're most comfortable moving. It's like... She gestured vaguely. When you're walking and you know where to put your feet without thinking about it, same thing, just with materials. That's not how materials science works, Zara said desperately. Okay, but it's how the materials work when I work with them, so... Emma shrugged apologetically. Azila pulled up a holographic display. Miss Johnson, you've been employed here for 14 standard days. During that time, you've been assigned to basic maintenance and equipment repair. Is that correct? Yep, though honestly, some of your stuff wasn't broken, just really inefficiently designed, like whoever made your graviton wrenches didn't account for... How many items have you modified? Emma thought for a moment. Let me check my work log. Okay, so 47 completed repairs, 12 pending inspections, and 3 things I'm still figuring out because the original design was really weird. 47. Azila pulled up the inspection reports that her security team had been frantically compiling. Every single modification violates established materials science. Plasma cutters that now operate at temperatures that should vaporize their housing. Graviton wrenches that manipulate mass in ways that contradict our understanding of gravity. Power tools that are simultaneously more efficient and completely impossible according to thermodynamics. I just made them work better, Emma said, sounding confused about why this was a problem. Vexthul was scrolling through his tactical analysis. Headmaster, by my count, 23 of these modifications could be classified as weapons, high-grade military ordnance in several cases. She's created an arsenal throughout this facility, and we cataloged her as unarmed civilian support staff. What does my personnel file say? Emma asked curiously. Azila pulled it up. Specialty, basics, repairs. Clearance level, civilian minimal. Threat assessment, 0. Weapons authorization, none required. Designated non-combatant. The irony hung in the air like a blade. Okay, but I am unarmed, Emma protested. I don't carry weapons. That's like the whole point of maintenance work. You just have your tools and whatever you need to fix things with. Miss Johnson, Admiral Dirac said carefully, you just created a blade superior to our military's best weapons from a cafeteria tray in 15 seconds, using your bare hands. Right, but that's not a weapon, Emma said. That's just a thing I made. It only becomes a weapon if someone decides to use it as one. Intent matters, you know? Kael'thas felt the final pieces click into place. Headmaster, I think we've been operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of how humans define armed. Explain, Azila commanded. We categorize individuals by the weapons they carry. Humans categorize threats by capability and intention. Miss Johnson considers herself unarmed because she doesn't intend violence, but by our standards, he gestured at the blade, the crane, the impossible cubes. She's been armed with the entire facility since the moment she arrived. Emma raised her hand. Can I just say, this seems like a really weird way to think about basic maintenance work. Like, back on Earth, this is just normal? My dad's a carpenter, and he does this stuff with wood all day. My sister's a mechanic, and she's way better with metal than I am. This is just kind of what humans do with materials. The Crisis Council stared at her. All humans? General Korvax asked faintly. I mean, to varying degrees. Some people have better intuition for it than others, but yeah, it's pretty standard. How else would you work with, oh? Emma's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Oh, you guys can't feel the stress lines. That's why you need all the machines. Wow, that must make construction really complicated. Azila closed her eyes briefly. Specialist Vex Thul, new threat assessment for human personnel. Calculating, Vex Thul said grimly. Recommendation, all humans should be classified as perpetually armed, regardless of equipment carried. Threat level, variable based on available materials. Containment protocol, impossible, would require removing all matter from their vicinity. That seems excessive, Emma muttered. But nobody was listening. Azila leaned forward, her command bearing softening into something approaching genuine curiosity. Miss Johnson, I need you to help us understand something. How do humans learn to do what you do? Emma settled into a chair, apparently relieved to be having a normal conversation. We just work with stuff, like from when we're kids. You learn what things can do, how they feel, what they're good at. She smiled, remembering. I used to build tree forts with my brother. You learn real quick which branches can hold weight, where the wood wants to bend, how to fit pieces together so they stay strong. Tree forts, Vex Thul repeated. Yeah. And then there was fixing bikes, reshaping metal in shop class, helping my dad with construction projects. Emma warmed to the topic. By the time you're a teenager, you've worked with dozens of different materials. You know how leather flexes, how plastic snaps, how metal holds stress. It's just part of growing up. Dr. Zara's hologram flickered as she adjusted her projection. You're describing an intuitive understanding of material stress analysis, compression physics, and molecular bonding that takes our engineers decades to learn theoretically, and you acquired it through childhood play. I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds fancy, Emma laughed. But yeah, basically, humans are pretty hands-on learners. Miss Johnson, Kael'thas said carefully, you mentioned your sister is better with metal than you are? Oh, way better. Sarah can look at an engine block and tell you exactly what's wrong just by touching it. She rebuilt her entire car from scrap when she was 16. Emma grinned. I'm honestly pretty middle of the road for this stuff. You should see what actual craftspeople can do. My uncle's a blacksmith, and watching him work is like art and physics having a baby. The Crisis Council exchanged glances that ranged from alarmed to existentially concerned. Admiral Dirac cleared his throat. I have to ask the obvious question. Human weapons technology. What are your military forces equipped with? Oh, we stopped carrying dedicated weapons like generations ago, Emma said casually. Once we realized everything's a potential weapon, it seemed kind of redundant to haul specific ones around. Why carry a sword when you can make one from whatever's nearby? Plus, it's a psychological thing. We figured out that how you think about tools matters more than what tools you have. Explain, Azila commanded, though her voice had lost its edge. Okay, so humans categorize danger by intention, not by objects. Emma picked up a pen from the conference table. This is a writing tool, but if I wanted to hurt someone with it, it becomes a weapon. The pen didn't change, my intention did. So we stopped thinking about armed versus unarmed and started thinking about hostile versus peaceful. Kael'thas felt the Academy's entire 10,000-year-old classification system crumbling. They'd built their security protocols on identifying weapons, specific designated tools of violence. The humans had transcended that framework entirely. Your species doesn't carry weapons, Vex Thul said slowly, because you've internalized that you don't need to. You can adapt any environment into an armory. That's a really dramatic way of putting it, Emma said, but sure. Demonstrate, Azila ordered. Defensive scenario. Create something that could protect you from hostile fire. Emma looked around the briefing room, spotted a decorative window frame, solid, crystalline composite, purely aesthetic. She walked over, ran her hands along its edges, and began working the material. 8 seconds later, she held a curved shield that perfectly conformed to her body, transparent but refracting light in patterns that would disperse energy weapons. Like this? She handed it to Kael'thas. He took it, felt the perfect weight distribution, the intuitive grip points. His tactical analysis software identified it as superior to anything in the Academy's defensive arsenal. She'd made it from a window frame, in 8 seconds. Headmaster, Kael'thas said quietly, humans don't carry weapons because they don't need to. They are, by their very nature, environmental adaptation specialists. Every human is a walking weapons factory, limited only by available materials and imagination. Azila stood, her decision made with the firmness that had commanded fleets. Immediate protocol revision. All human personnel are to be reclassified as perpetually armed, regardless of equipment carried. Security clearances will be reassessed based on intention screening rather than weapons possession. Training protocols will be updated to reflect human capability frameworks. Does this mean I can get back to work? Emma asked hopefully. Because seriously, that air circulation issue is going to become a problem if… Miss Johnson, Azila interrupted, but not unkindly. You are no longer assigned to general maintenance. As of this moment, you are the Academy's first materials consultation specialist. Congratulations on your promotion. Emma blinked. Do I get a raise? Despite everything, Azila smiled. Yes, a substantial one. Cool. Can I still fix the air circulation thing, though? It's really bothering me. By the next morning, the Academy had implemented human proximity awareness protocols throughout the facility. Every piece of furniture within 3 sectors of Emma's new office carried a designation tag, potential ordnance, monitor for modifications. Emma found it hilarious. They're making me business cards, she told Kael'thas, showing him the proof design on her datapad. Look, Emma Johnson, Materials Consultation Specialist. That's so official sounding for fixes stuff. Kael'thas watched as she casually transformed a broken training dummy into a perfectly balanced combat staff, the kind of weapon that would take master craftsmen months to produce. She'd done it in 40 seconds while finishing her coffee. Cadet Rilia, she called to a passing student. Catch! She tossed the staff underhand. The cadet caught it reflexively and immediately crashed to the floor under its impossible weight, 3 instructors rushing to assist. Oops, sorry, forgot to mention it's heavy. Emma shrugged, retrieved her spoon, an actual cafeteria spoon, and went back to the air filtration panel she'd been repairing. The spoon somehow worked better than the specialized tools scattered around her. In her office, Headmaster Azila recorded her final log entry on the incident. Recommend all galactic stations prepare protocols for human maintenance workers. Threat level, undefined. Containment, impossible. Approach, respectful cooperation and regular raises. Emma's voice echoed through the facility-wide comm system. Hey, anyone know why the gravity feels weird in Sector 7? I might have leaned on something while fixing that panel earlier. The panic resumed immediately.